She was the assistant Republican leader, and I think I was in the Senate, but I also served on committee, Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee with her. She's now working with Senator Collins' office, and she was at our last SAM Congress and presented related to a hatchery issue. If you want to come on up, Ellie. The bills that you heard this morning in the presenters are connected directly to the federal legislation that passed recently. For those that have been following, there was a bill in the federal, in the Congress that passed. We were asked to participate in negotiating some of that bill. There were some pretty draconian pieces in there that we helped to get out with the work of Senator Collins and Congressman Golden in particular we worked with. But there were some key financial pieces within that legislation that are integral to the programs that we were talking about earlier. And so I've asked Ellie to come up and talk a little bit about those. When we're done with that, we'll take some questions about that, and then we'll move into, I think, the more lively back and forth on a panel to discuss upcoming legislation. All right.
Well, where did Bill go? Right here, part where you take over.
I do?
In a minute, yeah.
Oh, they're bickering.
Yeah, they're bickering.
Thank you, David. As David said, I am Ellie Espling. He pulled out the whole Eleanor thing. My father only calls me Eleanor. I'm in trouble, so I don't know about that. But no, David and I have known each other for a long time, served together, and happy to be here. And I love what Sam does, and have always, when I served in the legislature, really respected the position that Sam would have and the information they could share when they came before the legislature. So I'm just here today to just give you an overview of what became the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And I think I'm just going to start by reading the words of Senator Collins when she introduced the bill on the floor, and just read the beginning of her speech. And it starts, "Once again, our nation has been horrified by mass shootings, this time of shoppers killed in Buffalo, New York, and of school children and teachers murdered in Texas. 12 of us have come together to develop the bipartisan proposal before us to help us address the gun violence that is plaguing our country. We were led by Senators Chris Murphy, John Cornyn, Kristen Sinema, and Tom Tillis, and I want to thank and recognize each of them for their efforts. Our common sense plan increases needed mental health resources, improves school safety and support for students, and helps ensure that dangerous criminals and those who are adjudicated as suffering from mental illness cannot purchase firearms. If enacted, our bill will save lives. At the same time, it steadfastly protects the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding gun owners, and is not hyperbole to say that this legislation represents the most significant gun safety legislation in decades." So that's how she introduced the bill. And then she went on to explain the different components of it. On the back table, there is a handout that also explains what is in the bill. So I'm just going to run over that really quickly. And then I'm going to let you know sort of an update since the bill has passed, what has happened. So it provides support for state crisis intervention orders, protections for victims of domestic violence, and on the handout it goes into a little more detail. I'm just giving you kind of the bullet points. Clarified definition of federally licensed firearms dealer, under 21 enhanced review process, penalties for straw purchasing, violence interruption funding, and then there's a whole list of investment in children and family mental health services that's in the handout, and then increased funding for schools. So I think the major parts of the bill were addressing some loopholes, addressing mental health, and addressing school safety, just directly as a result of the concerns that we have all seen from the public. And to be honest, I was working in Senator Collins' Portland office at the time, and we had a protest from, I don't know, 100, 200 students, high school age and younger, at our office, and we had some of the students in to give us their thoughts and their perspective about how they were feeling about school. And I think that's important for us to hear and to really take into account what our young people are saying, as a reaction to everything that's going on. So Senator Collins was the co-author of this act. Throughout the drafting process, Senator Collins and her staff had numerous conversations with the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine and other responsible pro-Second Amendment groups. The bill funds, but it does not require crisis intervention programs like Maine's Yellow Flag Law, which has robust due process protections in it. And I think one point I want to make, after listening to the commissioner present earlier, when he was talking about Maine's Yellow Flag Law and realizing that they had a lot of pushback from the hospitals and the doctors as to how to evaluate the patients and how they felt about it, and then they were able to find this telehealth solution to sort of resolve that piece of it. So, I think it's important to understand that this federal law sort of comes alongside of states, and it has a way for them to access some funding to develop what they can use in their own state. It's not dictating how it's supposed to be done, and I think that's very helpful, and that we've seen on the state level how important that is to let the state figure out what works here, and sometimes that's a little bit of a moving target when you're starting something new and trying to figure out what works and do all of that. So, having the funding available from the federal level to come into a state to assist them in the work that they're doing, I think can be incredibly helpful. So an update on where we're at today. Maine has already received numerous grants that were authorized by this bill. Nearly $1.8 million for the Department of Education, over $527,000 for School District 37, all through the School-Based Mental Health Services Grant Program. There's been $173,000 for the University of Southern Maine through the Mental Health Service Professional Demonstration Grant Program, and approximately $1.23 million for the Department of Public Safety for its crisis intervention program. Part of that crisis intervention program, the federal dollars can be used for the Safe Homes program in purchasing safe storage for the law enforcement community. So I think that's important, and it kind of dovetails into what you heard earlier with the commissioner and the program they're trying to do. So that's really, I didn't want to take a lot of time. I wanted to just kind of give you an overview. I don't typically speak on policy issues for the senator. I help her with constituent services in her Augusta office. But I'm happy to present the good work that she has done. And it's not without controversy. I think that we recognize that. But Senator Collins understands the heritage that we have in the state of Maine, the respect for gun owners, our Second Amendment rights, and so on. And I think sometimes it's some tough work to do on the federal level as far as these hot button issues. So that's all I have to share. It was rather brief.
That's all right. I'm going to kind of turn this over to Bill in a moment. There are some people here that were asked to serve on the panel where the crowd is not as big as I thought it might be. If they want to join us on the panel, this is being recorded and will be on YouTube for legislators and others to view.
So don't mess up.
That's right. That's right. So if you want to come up and you're welcome, Ellie, if you'd like to sit in and listen, or you can participate in the panel. I'm going to turn it over to Bill because we're going to be talking about some upcoming legislation, and the people that will be on the panel are either sponsors of the legislation, like Senator DeChambeau. I think Representative Corey may have stepped out. I'll text him in a moment. Senator Kine was a key legislator on the yellow flag law. And like I said, I'll have him join us. Lauren LePage, Senator Harrington.
So come on down right now.